Good evening. Welcome. Thanks for everybody that came out tonight. I hope that you all blew in safely. So I hope that you get out of tonight what you came here for, whether that be for peace, whether that be to find a new faith in Christ, whether that be you just wanted to get out of the house, or if you just wanted to hear a cop talk about God, which is two things that usually do not go together in our society. So for those of you that were not aware of the fact that I'm a cop, let me give you some background on that. So in 2003, I got hired by the Linn County Sheriff's Office after I graduated college. And in April of 2004, they sent me to the Law Enforcement Academy, which is in Des Moines, Iowa. I graduated from there in July of 2004. I began working for the Linn County Sheriff's Office in their correctional facility, which is a fancy word for jail. But apparently it makes it sound better if you say correctional facility. So I worked there for 5 years, and I had a huge eye-opening experience as to how law enforcement works and to how people treat people in the law enforcement community. And so after that 5 years, I kind of decided that maybe Linn County wasn't the spot for me. And in 2008, I came back to the Delaware County Sheriff's Office and have been working there ever since. In 2012, I became one of the county investigators and have been working major crimes for Delaware County, which I know you're all thinking there's not a lot of major crimes in Delaware County, but there's more than you probably think. And so as awful as it is to say, I'm actually really excited, and my specialty is in sexual assault crimes. That's what I do most of my work in. I do get to see the vast majority of some other crimes, though, as well. And so I'm always entertained by the people that know me in some capacity, like coaching, but they make assumptions about what I actually do. And so a few years ago, I was at a bar with a bunch of friends, and this gentleman came up to me and starts talking me up about my coaching and the fact that I coach. And I could tell from the conversation that he was very sure I was a teacher. And so I just kind of went with that. I had some friends that were teachers, and so I threw some stories out at him of like, I had a student do this, and he left the conversation none the wiser to the fact that what I actually do. And then another story is that we had been married a couple years, my husband and I, and our Schwann's guy had come to the house a couple times, and I was ready for work one night when he knocked on the door. I was in my full uniform. I opened the door, and he had that deer in the headlights look, and he's like, I really thought you were a teacher because you coach. And I said, I would make a terrible teacher. So it's interesting to me about the assumptions that we make about people, whether that be in their jobs, in their race, in their sexual orientation, in their families, in whatever that they do in life. We make assumptions about people, based on things that we perceive that they should do or that they want to do. And I read a joke on Facebook this morning that actually goes kind of perfectly with this. So there's a little boy who was waiting for his mother to come out of a department store. As he waited, he was approached by a man who asked him, "Son, can you tell me where the post office is?" And the little boy replied, "Sure, just go straight down the street and turn right." The man thanked the boy and kindly said, "I'm the new minister in town, and I'd like for you to come to church on Sunday." He said, "I'll show you the way to get to heaven." And the little boy said in reply with a chuckle, "Come on, you don't even know how to get to the post office." And so I thought that was perfect for kind of where I'm going to go with my speech tonight, because I'm going to talk about perspective and what we think other people should know. So I don't have an amazing story to tell you tonight about myself or about my faith. My hope for you tonight is that you walk away from here thinking about perspective and the judgment of situations that we place on ourselves or on other people, because our perspective on thank you. Our perspective on situations can affect how we base things in situations. And if you think about it in a faith-based atmosphere, we're all trying to get to that same destination of heaven, but the journey is going to look different for every single person in this room. There's a phrase, I'm sure we've all heard it, it's not the destination, but it's the journey. And I think that's I want you guys to focus on tonight, because everyone in this room has a different journey that they're on. I'm sure all of you could stand up here and talk about your journeys, and it would all be a different story for us. So I've always enjoyed music as well in my life. And so tonight I'm going to throw in a few songs for you to think about, kind of throw it in there to give you some perspective on how I interpret those songs into my journey or my faith atmosphere. So let's dive into this. So I was born in 1980. For those of you that aren't good at math and that are trying to figure out how old I am, that puts me at 41 years old. I thought I would tell you all that because apparently it's not polite to ask a woman her age. So now you all know how old I am. So as the story goes, or as my mother has always told me from birth, is that it was August 16th, which was my due date. Okay, remember that, due date. Okay, and I apparently had put my mother through hell that day with my indecisiveness about being born. Once I decided that I wanted to be born, though, it was game on. And I was born 15 minutes after arriving at Mercy Hospital. Apparently at the start of the big hill that goes into Dubuque that they call the Mile Hill, my mother really started worrying about where I was going to be born. Now, I firmly believe that we can all learn something from our daily experiences. And so even after 41 years of hearing this story, being told this story, I reply to my mother usually that I'm a punctual person. I hate being late. And so she should have realized that due date meant something. She tells me that her lesson that day was the beginningness of my stubbornness traits. And so I was baptized Catholic. I was raised in a strong Catholic home. We prayed before meals. We prayed before bed. We attended church regularly. We were given a Catholic education. Nothing out of the ordinary for families in our cluster or in this regional area. And so as I said earlier, my story is nothing amazing to tell you. But tonight I hope you walk away with a different perspective on the Catholic faith. In today's society and the world of uncertainty in so many areas, I think we need to remind ourselves over and over again that the goal is the destination of heaven, but that everyone's journey will be completely different, and that God will do the judging of the person when it comes time. It's not our job to do, it's His job to do. We need to focus on our journey with Jesus because the journey is the important part for us. The challenge for us is to judge people, or we want to think that people should be doing it the way we're doing it. It's not always the way. And so challenge for me is an interesting word. It's an intense word. We a lot of times put negative connotations on challenges, but there can be positive outcomes to that, right? So the negative stuff comes with pain or discomfort or some situation that we think we're challenged in. But challenge can be positive. There can be positive outcomes to challenges that we're faced with. And so I want you to think tonight about the challenges of your life and whether they're positive or negative and how that affected you. So within the law enforcement community and within the military world, you guys may have heard the term challenge coin. Challenge coins are given out to people who are in a situation that was difficult for them or that turned out, it might have been difficult to start with, but it turned out in a positive manner, whether they survived a battle, whether they were shot on duty, a number of things you can get challenge coins for. And so I think that from these challenge coins, people probably gain a huge amount of perspective on the situation they were in or the situation moving forward to how they're going to face life. And so I plan to talk tonight about my perspective on the challenge coins that God has given me. And then I want you to think about the challenge coins that He's given you. And so tonight my talk is titled Challenge Coins. So being raised Catholic in Petersburg, Iowa was never really a challenge for me. Now my parents are probably going to have a different perspective on that. So you can get with them later to figure out if it was different. But to me, my first challenge coin was tossed my way in the 6th grade. And so I went to Hennessy Catholic. And so in Hennessy Catholic, we had career day in the 6th grade. We were allowed to dress up like the profession that we thought we wanted to be. And so typically you have farmers, baseball players, dancers, singers, the normal stuff that kids want to be when they're 11 or 12 in 6th grade. But when my mom asked me what I wanted to dress up as, my first immediate response was police officer. Why? I have no idea. At this point, I had never met a police officer. We had had no involvement with police officers in our family. I didn't have any relatives that were police officers. I didn't know a police officer, so why I chose police officer, it's a mystery to me. I don't know. I don't know why I said this. But my mother rolled with it gracefully. So she went to work and came up with a blue button-down shirt, a pair of green pants that had the stripe down the side like I still wear, and she went in our basement and got our laser tag holster gun, because I couldn't take the gun, but she let me take the holster to school. And then she made me a little foil badge and sent me off to school feeling fully supported in the decision that I was going to be a police officer. And so for me, that was my first challenge of becoming a police officer. Again, it's not a huge life moment. Don't think that I became a cop freak at that point, was putting posters up on the walls in my room and practicing in the front yard. I wasn't, okay? I went on with normal stuff, okay? But that's where my professional life and my faith life started to intertwine, is what I see. So the flip side of this challenge coin that God gave me was music, okay? And so also while I was at Hennessy, I had the opportunity to begin taking guitar lessons and playing in the band. Again, music and cops is another odd pairing, I know, but let's just roll with it, okay? It's gonna be a common theme of odd pairings in my life. So I started to take guitar lessons, and again, I'm not a music freak. I can't read a stitch of music today. I couldn't tell you what any of those chords were that I learned back then. But I started to learn about music and how it affected my life. And again, I think this was God working in my life. We all have that song that brings us back to something or to some place, whether it be when we met our spouse or we had a child. It could bring us to a funeral. It could bring us to a tragedy in our lives. There's lots of different perspectives that we as individuals take away from certain songs or certain music that we hear. And so it's another place where God allows us a moment in our lives to learn something about ourselves. And so the songs I recall learning during my guitar lessons were Cats in the Cradle by Cat Stevens and Puff the Magic Dragon. And so for me, I thought, these are really cool songs to play. They're fun, the words are fun, right? But think about that. One talks about smoking marijuana, and one talks about a broken family, okay? Are those great things for a 6th grader to probably be learning? No, but I didn't know that at the time. The perspective was that they were easy to learn on the guitar, probably because the guy that wrote them was smoking marijuana at the time, okay? But they're easy to learn on the guitar, and so my perspective of those songs are completely different today than what the actual meaning of those are. And so, going with that music theme, St. Boniface in New Vienna is a mass that my husband and I occasionally attend. And it seems that God really wants me to remember this challenge coin when I attend those masses. Excuse me. Earlier we talked about the things that cause us to remember or take you back to something. And so every time that we happen to go to New Vienna for Mass, Carol Engelken happens to be leading Mass now, or music at Mass. She's fantastic at it. She still plays the guitar sometimes when she's there. The twist here that God throws my way is that Carol Engelken was my guitar teacher. And so every time I see her, I'm taken immediately back to my time at Hennessy and the fact that she taught me those songs. And I don't know why. Literally, every time I see her, I can see her in a grocery store, but it takes me back to those songs and the perspective of that. And so God's kind of tricky on how he does things, but he gets it done. And so a coin for most people, if we think about a coin, right? A coin is round for most people, just for a shape reference. So what I want you to think about is when others look at us, they have perspectives about our lives or our jobs or our families, and basically the picture that we present to people around us. The challenge I want you to take a minute and think about is that what do you see in your picture for yourself? What are you presenting the world? What are you presenting to God as your perspective as working towards him? Again, that's going to look different for every person because your coin might not be a circle, okay? It might be broken in pieces. It might be cut in half. It might not have even been a circle to begin with, okay? It just depends on the perspective of your life and the perspective that you're in. And so we need to think about perspectives of the coin possibly being broken for other people or possibly not even have been whole to begin with. And so here's my first song for you to think about. So when I first heard that song, I thought, well, that pretty much nailed me. I hate asking people for help. I will try to move a mountain myself if I can do it. And I really will work as hard as I can to get out of a tough situation without asking anyone for help. Remember, I'm stubborn. If you recall back to my mother, right? I'm stubborn. But the chorus for me is really what does it. The chorus for me is what does it, okay? And I guess I knew this about myself before I heard this song, but when I heard it, I thought, wow, that's me in a heartbeat, okay? And so the chorus says, I know I'm superwoman. I know I'm strong. I know I've got this because I've had it all along. I'm phenomenal, and I know I'm enough. I don't need you to tell me who to be. Can someone just hold me? Don't fix me. Don't try to change a thing. Can someone just know me? For me, that someone's God, okay? He truly knows me. He knows my decisions. He knows why I do the things I do. And he's the one holding me on my journey, okay? And that's what I think we need to maybe remember for ourselves, is that we just need to have a good relationship with him and not necessarily worry about what the world thinks about us, because we might be broken, okay? But it could be beautiful. And so that song's by Kelly Clarkson. Not to take credit for anything. That song's by Kelly Clarkson. So as I grew up, my parents made the choice to send me to Catholic school and continue my Catholic education at Beckman. As I developed my own relationship with God and what I wanted that relationship to be, I went to tech. I was involved in school clubs and activities. I was involved in my community and my church. All of the things that are pretty normal for Catholic kids around here to be doing. But most importantly, I was supported by my community and my family that it was okay for me to be doing it my way. And so my senior year rolls around, and college is in the near future. So here comes the next challenge coin from God. And that challenge has 3 levels to it, right? So I had to pick a college, I had to pick a career, and I needed some perspective on life. Because growing up around here, as great as it is, sometimes it's really sheltered. So let's break this down. A career, right? I needed a career. And so the Dyersville Police Department and Beckman Catholic at the time had a job shadow participation program for students. So this was a win-win for me, right? I got to learn about being in law enforcement, and I got to get out of the last 2 periods of school. It was great, okay? Now the job experience, the job shadowing was obviously a very positive experience for me. I met some great contacts in the law enforcement world. I gained some knowledge on the career that I thought that I wanted to be in. And the job shadow spun itself into a summer job for me. I became the bike cop in Dyersville for 2 summers. And so the first summer, in 1999, I had met Officer John Lindemann. He no longer works for that department. He works for Benton County now. But shockingly, in my investigative role, I've now begun working with John Lindemann again with some stuff that I do. And so Officer Lindemann said to me one day, he said, if you really want to do this job and you think you really want to see it done well, you need to meet Trooper Amy Driscoll. Now, up until this point, I'd heard her name in conversations, and I had had some friends that had dealt with her at work and had met Trooper Amy Driscoll. My knowledge of her and the stories that accompanied her usually involved the word bitch. But up until that point, I had not met a woman in law enforcement. So I thought, why not? Let's see what she's like. And so here comes one of those twists by God again in my life. And so, because from the first handshake with Amy, I was hooked, right? She was fantastic. She was a powerhouse in the law enforcement profession. And the admiration for Amy that other officers had as I continued to meet people was astounding. I mean, I knew quickly that this was the female that I wanted to imitate in law enforcement. So as my ride-alongs with Amy became a regular thing, I learned skills and avenues, how to navigate the law enforcement world, things like that, and the challenges of law enforcement, how I would deal with that. What I didn't intend to get out of those ride-alongs was the amazing friendship that I have with Amy. I have been able to learn and grow in my faith in conversations with Amy, but I was also able to see a strong Catholic woman be a cop and do it well. I could stand up here for hours and tell you the skills and the avenues that Amy taught me about the law enforcement world, but none of that really matters, okay? The thing that I took away from Amy was that she's a faith-filled person with a strong relationship with God. She's strong in her marriage, she's strong with her kids, now her grandkids, and she passes that relationship on through all of those people with how they should imitate God. And so once again, I have to give a good job to God because that twist worked out. And so that all came from one job shadow experience. And so I could put a big check mark by the career, right? Have that figured out. I got a career choice. So tackling college is a big choice for any senior in college and their family, and mine was no different. So here comes God's guidance again. I had a number of conversations with my mother about college and my thoughts on how I thought that would look. Don't forget about my stubbornness, okay? I thought I would attend a 4-year college and major in criminal justice while playing basketball. Pretty simple, right? That's my plan. My mother strongly encouraged me because I had 2 siblings that had chosen to embark on the junior college experience. And so my mother strongly encouraged that path as it would save money and I could get some gen eds out of the way while still deciding if that's kind of the career path I wanted to choose. I thought this was absolutely ridiculous. I mean, why would you do that when you could just go to one place and get it all done and be done with it? So again, my stubbornness won out and we went down that 4-year college path. And so I decided to go to Briarcliff College in Sioux City. The campus visit was great. I loved the school. I was going to get to play basketball on a scholarship. The drive to Sioux City, not so great. It's a really long way across the state. And I knew that all these things were leading me down a path, right? And again, the basketball thing, was it a set thing? No. Did I have to play basketball? Nope. Do cops and basketball usually go together? Again, odd pairing, I know, okay? Stick with me on that. So April of my senior year rolls around, and I start thinking maybe Sioux City's not the place that I'm supposed to go. And so I changed my decision to Mount Mercy College. Not a big change, still a small Catholic college. At this point, the Catholic thing was my choice, not my parents' choice, but it wasn't a big change. Mount Mercy is a small Catholic college. Briarcliff was a small Catholic college. They both have pretty similar campuses at the time. But for some reason, I went to Mount Mercy and it was a fit for me. And I don't know why, but apparently that's the place I was supposed to be. My faith relationship with God grew so much stronger, and I gained so much knowledge about myself and my faith while I was at Mount Mercy. I gained some amazing friendships, but I became responsible for my relationship with God on the perspectives that I wanted it to be in the world. And so here is what I took away from Mount Mercy. Here's one more song for you. And so I heard that song when I was a sophomore in college at Mount Mercy. There was this thing called Antioch, which is kind of like a tech. And when I heard that song, I thought, holy cow. The phrase that stuck out to me was, I will find my way to be your hands and feet. And I think that's kind of what God is wanting from us in our lives. Everybody's going to do it their own way, but we have to find our way to be his hands and feet to other people, our way to look at how he wants us to do things. And so I thought that I was ready to be the hands and feet of God's feet in the world. So I graduated from Mount Mercy with a criminal justice and a sociology double major. I know what you're thinking. Where the heck did sociology come from? Because I haven't talked about that at all, right? And so I'd taken some of my mother's advice, and I did complete some gen eds during the summers at NICC while I was doing the bike cop gig, which was great advice because I completed my criminal justice degree in 3 years of the 4-year program. The problem was I had a year of basketball left. And so I had to pick another major so I could stay to play basketball. And so I picked sociology because I had the most credits already done in that one. So criminal justice and sociology I have a double major in. So my college choice, I can put a big fat check mark by that, okay? Mount Mercy was good for me. So the only thing on the checklist at this point is perspective, or my life perspective that I thought I needed yet. So when the second major of sociology came around, so did a job opportunity. I worked at Four Oaks in Cedar Rapids in the Smith Center. Now, the Smith Center is a residential treatment facility for 5 to 12-year-old children who had been removed from their parents because of behavior disabilities. I went into this job thinking I was going to be able to pay my bills, and that I was going to maybe roll it into a summer job, and then it would look really good on my resumes. Okay, that's really all I was hoping to get out of this job. But here comes that tricky twist by God again. So the perspective on my life that I was able to gain from other people came to me through children, right? God put children in my life to teach that to me. And so this job was my first real experience of being able to see how awful people can be to other people and how people can treat other people without thinking about how it's going to affect them at all. People can choose to do awful things for no real apparent reason. The situations that many of these children had before they came to Four Oaks is unimaginable. I could tell you some of their stories and you'd probably want to throw up on the tables in front of you. But the things that they were forced to live through or live with absolutely amazes me. The perspective I was gaining made me question that phrase, God never gives you more than you can handle, because these children were handling far more than what I thought a child should be handling. But again, that was my perspective. These kids rolled with the punches and worked through their struggles daily to overcome terrible things that had been done to them. And so in my time there, I met a boy named Kurt. Kurt was 9 at the time that I started dealing with him. And he had some behavior disabilities, some issues that he struggled with. But Kurt was on his own life journey. You could definitely tell that. He was definitely his own individual. But it seems to be that when I need to be regrounded in my perspective on how I look at things or how I judge people on things, I'm reminded of Kurt, and that happens through a song. So when Kurt used to have an issue or need to deal with something, or we'd have to have him sit for a while, he would sit on his knees on the floor and he would rock back and forth, and he would sing Drift Away by Dobie Gray. And so I'm going to play just a little bit of that for you. So Kurt would sit on the floor literally over and over and over and over and over again for like an hour, just singing the chorus of that. Give me the beat, boys, and free my soul. Like, he would do it in rhythm. It was amazing. And so as I was putting this speech together, I had to listen to the words of that song. I've never really listened to them other than Kurt singing them over and over and over again, right? But if you listen to the words, day after day I'm more confused, but I look for the light through the pouring rain. You know that's a game that I hate to lose, and I'm feeling the strain. Ain't it a shame? Give me the beat, boys, to free my soul. I want to get lost in your rock and roll and drift away. So my perspective on those words seems like Kurt was saying a prayer to God. He was asking him to help him with whatever he was dealing with in that day, at that minute, right? Kurt would repeat this over and over and over again. And I think just for a minute, he wanted to drift out of the situation that he was in. And so he was singing that to call on God as his prayer to get him out of that situation. And so I'm not sure why songs do this for me, why they bring me back to places, but just as Carol Engelken brings me back to Hennessy, Kurt brings me back to my perspective on how I need to treat people every time, okay? And then the situations that people put other people in. Now, I can only assume that in my journey, God wants me to realize that with perspective comes connections. I will say that again. With perspective comes connections. So, you all came here to hear a cop talk about God, right? So let's dive into the nuts and bolts of this. And so the next challenge coin that God tosses my way, I was pretty established in my career. I was up here in Delaware County. I'd gained perspective through my time working in the Lynn County Jail. And I had made the choice to move back to Delaware County, continue my law enforcement career. I had the added benefit of becoming a regular parishioner again at St. Peter and Paul's, and my faith and understanding of God and my job were fully intertwined at this point. I was strong in my faith. I didn't question anything at all. But so when cops sign up for a law enforcement conference or when they need to go to training, which, yes, we need to go to training. Okay, I know that that's a thing in the world. Cops always look at what's actually being taught and then what cops are going to talk about what stories, because that's really what we want to hear about. Okay, yes, we need to get that training, but we want to hear other cops' war stories. And so I'm going to share some of my war stories with you tonight, just so you can see how I'm challenged in my job with my faith. And so I'll just put a disclaimer out there that some of these cases may touch close to home for you as far as their topic, and I apologize if it does. If you have any questions about them, please ask me, and I will answer to the best of my ability. All of these cases have been settled in court, and none of it is currently ongoing. And so my first case is a sexual assault that I dealt with. And so just to give you the people in the case, there's an 11-year-old female named Addison, her stepfather Ricky, and her mother Rebecca are the three main players. There's other people in the case, but those are the three main players. So Addison went to a high school around here, or at that time would have been a junior high school, or elementary school around here. She complains frequently during gym class that she doesn't want to participate in gym class. She has a stomach ache. She doesn't want to go to school. She just wants to go home. And so this happens week after week. And so eventually she gets to gym class and she passes out because of the activity that they're doing. She goes to the hospital, and then they figure out that she's 20 weeks pregnant. 20 weeks pregnant, 11 years old. And so her parents are called, or her mom and her stepdad are called, and told that this has taken place. And they make the decision that Addison's not old enough to raise a family and that they don't want to do it for her. So they make the decision to get an abortion for Addison. The twist here is that at that time in Iowa, you could not get an abortion after 20 weeks. So they take her to Illinois to get an abortion. At this point, she's 21 weeks along. And so she's in Illinois. They get the abortion. The abortion clinic somehow thinks that the story doesn't really jive that they've told them as to how Addison became pregnant. And so they keep the fetus. And now I understand that I should say baby here, okay? But in my world, we say fetus, okay? And so every time I say fetus, if you'd like to replace that with baby, feel free to go ahead and do that, okay? And so the fetus is kept, and I don't know why. I don't know the abortion clinic's policy on why they kept it. I don't know if they do that every time, but the fetus is sent to Jones County, where the story that Mom and Dad have come up with say that this pregnancy originated in Jones County. So Jones County investigates this case for about a month and a half before they realize, yep, nope, that doesn't jive. It actually happens in Greeley. And so it gets kicked to me. And so I do the interviews with all the people involved. I do some DNA testing on the people involved, as well as the fetus. And it comes back to a 99.99999% match to, any guesses? Stepfather, yes. Comes back to stepfather, okay? Stepfather absolutely denies it. There is absolutely no way. The lab must have screwed up. There's no way that that's his child, okay? It's just not possible. So obviously I don't believe that, so I arrest him. He is offered some plea deals along the way through court. He doesn't take any of those plea deals, and so it's set up for trial. So usually what I do with kids when they have to come into trial is I bring them in and kind of walk them through where they're going to sit, how the questions are going to go, the answers, things like that. And so 3 days before trial, I bring Addison in, and I get her prepped and I get her everything. 1 day before trial happens, Ricky takes a deal. He pleads to 35 years in prison, and he's sent away to prison. Addison tells me she wants to talk at that point, that she has some other things she wants to talk about. I said, okay. And in my mind, I'm thinking, like, she just wants to know how this is going to go, like where Ricky's going to go, what, kind of the process of that. Addison takes me back to when she's 8, and when Ricky starts touching her and doing odd things and the grooming process, as we call it. And at that point, I can't do anything to Ricky because he's already taken a plea deal. Or at least that's what the county attorney tells me. And so here's a big one for me, right? As a Catholic, abortion is wrong. Yes, I agree that abortion is wrong, okay? I stand firm on that. When the case was completely over, I get a letter from the county attorney in most cases, because I'm also the evidence custodian for the county, that says such and such case is closed. You may now destroy the evidence or send it back to the family. So I asked the sheriff how he would like to handle that. And he says to me, we'll return it to the mother. And I said, she's 13. You want me to tell her to come pick up a fetus and have to decide what to do with it? And so I didn't think that was a good decision. I didn't even call the family to tell them that they could have it back, because the mother, Rebecca, way back the mother, grandmother at this point, I guess, told me that she wanted absolutely nothing to do with anything of this, as far as the fetus goes. And so I just contacted a local funeral home, and I asked them if they could help me, find a resting place for this child. And so that's why I said that God got to take this baby home, because that's what I did. I didn't bother the family with payment. I didn't bother them with details of it. I just had it dealt with, and it went away. But I struggle with this case, right? Because it was my first real challenge on putting my faith into play with my job. And do I think that with my job this case turned out great? Yes, I do, okay? I put someone in prison for 35 years because of what he did to his stepdaughter, okay? Do I struggle with the fact that I had to do that because an abortion took place? Yeah, I do. And so many of you probably want to know what happened to Addison. I checked in with her for a couple years afterwards. She was moved. Her mom took her and moved schools. Rebecca took her and moved schools so that nobody would know kind of what she had gotten through. She ended up having a lot of psychological things, and a lot of stuff happened to her. And Mom asked if I would just stop checking in because it brought up too many bad memories for her, and so I did. So I have no idea what happened to Addison in her life. I have no idea where she's at today. Hopefully she's well. Hopefully she's able to recover from all that. But that's one situation where my faith and my job kind of crisscross in opposite angles. Questions about that? Anything anybody wants to know? Okay, case number 2. Terry and Rivette are husband and wife. They live in Ryan, Iowa. They have a pretty bad marriage. They don't really like each other. Rivette wants a divorce, but she can't afford a divorce. So she's spending a lot of time in Illinois with a female friend she met online in a gambling game. And so Terry is then spending some time with his ex-wife. And so some jealousy stuff comes up between the two of them. Rivette comes back to Iowa to try to work that out. And in her trying to work that out, she ends up shooting Terry and killing him. Now, Terry was an active member of the community. He attended church. He was on the fire department, an all-around good guy in the community. Rivette claims self-defense for shooting him, that Terry was keeping her, kidnapped her in their own home. She obviously took that stuff to trial, went to trial, didn't work out for her so well. She got life in prison for killing Terry. Now, this one's not hard, right? It's pretty basic. Our commandments say don't murder people. And I'm good with that, okay? The thing that I'm not good with is that in church, we often pray for people who are in prison or imprisoned. And I struggle with this because they're there for a crime. They committed that crime. They should be able to serve the time and the punishment for that crime. And so I don't want to pray for those people. But this is part of my perspective on how I'm probably being judged by God. Okay, I don't want to pray for those people, and I struggle every time. I still say the response like I'm supposed to, but my perspective on this is that God is using this case to teach me something about myself and my understanding of my faith and my job on my journey to get to Him. Not everything's going to be easy for us in life, and not everything's going to be clear-cut for us in life. It's not always black and white. There's some gray areas. And for me, this is a gray area. I fully believe Rivette should be in prison, but I also don't want to pray for her while she's in prison. Questions about that one? No? Okay. A third and last one, I know this stuff's kind of hard for some people to sit through. Chief Deputy Eric Brooks, 282 is his badge number. He was a family guy, always talked about his kids, always talked about his wife, very dedicated to his job. He had some issues with his job as far as how he did it. He was a little too aggressive with people. He had a great personality, though. He was a role model for me family-wise because he seems to be really well-grounded with his wife and really well-grounded with his kids. Unknown to anybody, he didn't share with anybody the personal struggles he was having and some other issues he was having. And so on a Thursday, he was walked out of work for some things that he had done inappropriately at work. And the following Tuesday, he committed suicide with his gun. He got a funeral. We buried him. He got a cop's funeral. I don't think he should have got a cop's funeral. I've had other coworkers over the years that have passed away, retired cops, either from cancer or some issue that they had, a car accident, work-related issues. But this was my first suicide experience. And I pray my only suicide experience with a coworker. Brooks was a great guy in my eyes. He had some work challenges, yes. I got along great with him. I liked the way he handled himself as a law enforcement officer. But the church teaches that suicide is a sin, right? So that's a challenge for me. And does that change things for me? No. For a long time, I was really mad at Brooks. I was really mad at the fact that he chose to do that to his family, who he spoke very highly of, to his kids that he spoke very highly of. And I've asked God more times than I can probably count, to give me some understanding of this and help me through this. And all that I can say is that through God's grace, I think I've realized that it was Brooks' choice, okay? He made the choice himself and on his own journey to God. Do I believe that he made it to heaven? Yeah, I do, because he was a pretty, religious guy. He talked about God. It's not like he attended church, but he had his own struggles, okay? And can I judge him on those struggles? Yeah, I could, but I don't know what lies behind those struggles. And so I have to, in my brain, kind of just think that God's trying to teach me that we're all on our own journey. I got to do it my way, and hopefully I make it to heaven. It's not my judgment, but it's God's judgment. And so this whole thing kind of rolled around for me. The Brooks thing happened, and then the George Floyd thing happened, and then People Hated Cops thing happens, and then at the end of People Hating Cops thing happened, I heard this song, and I kind of thought, yep, that's it. Okay, so just think about this as you're listening. So there's a phrase in that song that says, let's try to start over, right? So tonight, let's try to start over. Think about how we treat others, how we judge them because of our perspective on life. We are all different people trying to achieve the same goal of heaven, but we are all on our own journeys to that destination. And in the end, God only knows the challenges we have, so be open to accepting people. Even if they're doing it differently than you. So the flip side of this challenge coin of all that yuckiness, the flip side of that was that I was truly settled in my faith and truly committed to God. I was happy in my life. I was enjoying doing it my way. And I went to my Mount Mercy College roommate's wedding. Again, that Mount Mercy comes back. And I met my husband, Terry. The relationship was easy. It was, do you want me to wait for him to come back? He'll be okay. Oh. This relationship was easy for me, and it was effortless. It seemed to fill in the pieces of everything I didn't even know that were missing to my puzzle. And so fast forward to our wedding, and a story comes from a guest that we had invited. And she told us that she was watching us sit up on the altar, and that when every song played, I seemed like I didn't have a care in the world, or that I didn't care that the entire church was watching me, but that I was singing every song. Or at least mouthing it up there. Elise was doing the singing. She said that it was really enjoyable for her because it looked to her like I was just doing my own thing up there. I was just on my own journey. I didn't have a care in the world. And I have to say that besides marrying Terry that day, the music was my favorite part of that day, and still is. I tell people all the time to focus on their music when they're getting married. And I'm thankful for that day and for my marriage and for everything that's brought to my life. But I think that sometimes we forget about those blessings. We forget about where they've come from. God has blessed me in so many ways, both personally and professionally, but oftentimes I get caught up in the daily grind of things and I forget to remember the gratefulness that I should have. And so let's take a pause for a moment, okay, and just think about how many things that we are grateful for on our destination to heaven. And so here's a song that Terry and I used in our wedding, and I won't play the whole thing because I know tonight's getting kind of long, but so just take a minute in your days. As you leave here today, tomorrow when you wake up, take a minute and just try to be thankful, okay? Just try to be thankful for all the things that he's given to you. Now, married life comes with challenges, and again, we talked that challenges can be positive or negative before, so depending on the perspective that we take from them. And so the last challenge point I'm going to talk about tonight may hit close to home for some of you, and again, I apologize for that, but it seems to be an issue in our culture. Terry and I were, and still are, trying to grow our family. We had done everything we could think of to naturally have children, so we went back to praying and hoping to grow our family. We prayed a lot during that time, a lot. And the prayers of our challenge continue, and God has led us down the path to adoption. We've been on this journey for a while now, but the prayer for the unknown face of the song still remains with us. We hope that God graces us with an addition to our family, and so that we can continue to grow our family. So we wait for the flip side of the coin. And again, I'm reminded that this is my journey. Regardless of the outcome, I will hopefully reach the destination of heaven, regardless of the choices I've made, not what the world tells me that I can make. So I'm going to wrap up my talk tonight then. I hope and pray that you focus moving forward on the needs of your own personal relationship with God and your journey to the destination of heaven. Society and other influences can tell us what they think or what they think we should do on how to get to heaven, but God only knows your heart and the challenges of your journey in getting there. And so you have to think about what your relationship is with him, what your faith is with him. Step into the challenge coins he gives you, free of judgment, what other people think of you, based on your own perspective on the journey that you're on. The final song that I have for you guys tonight is written by Adele. She wrote it when she was going through a divorce. But if you listen to the words, it sums up everything that I have talked about tonight. And the perspective for me of this song is that we are none the wiser without the guidance of God in our journey. So embrace your journey, embrace your faith, realize that you are none the wiser without God. Thank you. Any questions? No?